Off-cut gears, okay, they're just at 45 degrees to each other, so when that revolves, and basically you're just pressing this against the aluminium and distorting the shape of it. Okay, that's all you're doing. And those, because they're meshing at 45 degree, it'll leave an effect on the aluminium. Still, never leave that in there. You can't actually turn it on without that down. That's got a safety switch on it, but it's good practice because older lathes don't have these guards. And if you walk away from that, I mean, someone comes along and turns it on, that goes flying through their face or the person who's innocently working over there, or through the window or something. So, right, so this is a 3-jaw self-centering chuck. Okay, you can see that all the jaws come in and out. There's like a big steel disc inside the lathe with a spiral, and these jaws follow the spiral. If you look, if I take them out far enough, you'll see the back of the gears here. There's like a dogtooth, square dogtooth on the back that's curved, and that follows the spiral that we're turning when we do this. And you can in fact take these, drive them straight out and turn them round, and use, if you had like a big disc of material, you might want to hold it within the jaws of this. Okay, so you can turn those round and grip material in a different way. Okay. All right, Chris.
I'll leave that receipt on your desk.
Oh right,
I'll
yeah.
catch up with you later.
Okay, yeah. Come up and see me at lunchtime or something.
Save.
Right, so we'll just put that back in. Now, when you're putting material into the chuck, just make sure that it's nice and centred before you tighten it up. You don't want to have too much work sticking out of the chuck when you're lathing, because you're forcing the tool into the material. Okay, the longer it is, the more it will bend away from the tool before it actually bites into the material and cuts it. So although it's a self-centering chuck, always get into the habit of tightening a couple of the keyholes. It's good practice just to make sure it's all nice and tight and central. Okay, so we've got our material in. We know that it's running all right. We've jogged it, and we know it's in gear. When I first took the cloth off, someone had been playing with it. There was no tool in there. These gears were all out of sort of like into neutral and various other places, so I just had to sort that out. I'm still not sure whether the tool's exactly centre. The cutting edge of the tool has to be dead in centre of the material, because though you might not notice it when you're cutting on the side, if we turn the tool around and cut the face, smooth the face of the material off, if it's not in the centre, what will happen is it'll look like a record disc. You'll have a nice sort of spiral across the centre, but then you'll have a little bit sticking out the middle. Okay, that's you can see how it looks like a bit like a disc of a record, doesn't it? And you can see there's no little sort of nipple of metal sticking out the centre there. You can just about feel that. Are you videoing me? You can just about feel it there. So it's a little bit out of adjustment there. But when we check when we cut the face of this off, we'll see how centre that tool is, and we might have to shim it out with some thin slivers of metal. Usually I find old hacksaw blades are quite good as shims. What we'll do, this is the bed of this track piece here is called the bed. This is the tail stock, this is the headstock, that's the chuck, this is the saddle. Okay, it's a bit like the wood lathe, the things are more or less called the same names. You've got the main control wheel to move the saddle along the bed. You've got cross slide, that's a handle to control the cross slide. Okay, so you can change the depth of cut. And then you've got another little cross slide there as well, which you can use for sort of fine adjustments. Mostly we'll just be using this and this one. Okay. So if we just get it a little bit closer to the material, and then we can just jog it again. Make sure it's all running all right. Okay, turn it on. And just what you mustn't do is expect to cut big chunks of material off. It's always small amounts, okay? That way we won't bend the bar away from the tool. If you try to take too much off at once, you get a very bad finish, okay? So we'll just you can see the amount of swarf that's coming off. It sort of tends to fly about. That's why you need to wear some sort of eye protection when you're using the lathe. And if you just, it takes practice, and I'm a bit out of practice, but you just learn to try and feed this handle round continually. You can tell how jerky I am because the little bits of swarf are breaking off. If I was moving that handle round perfectly all the time, I'd just have one big long piece of swarf come off. So just take the tool away, bring it back to the start again, and then just take the tool in a little bit. If you remember on the gauge where you were, it's a bit easier. I keep on forgetting to look at it. It's 0.5, 0.6, 7, 8, so it's 1.8 at the moment. We'll just I tend to stop talking when I'm concentrating. Okay, so just take it off, pull it back. If you don't take the tool back and away from the material, what happens if you just take the saddle back, the tool will tend to still try and still find a bit of material to cut, and you'll end up with like a big corkscrew mark down your metal. But you can feel that's where I've cut it. It's nice and shiny, and it's fairly smooth. Where someone's really roughed out the metal there by just going, they've just gone really quickly like that. So you're not even getting a full revolution on the tip of the tool before you've moved on to another area. So it's rather like a thread of a screw, albeit a very fine screw, and that's very, very, very rough. And you can feel you can feel the difference between what I've just done, and you can almost catch your fingers on the other bit. Now there is another, there's a little bit of automation on here which we can use. It normally gives quite a good effect, and that is to actually drive the saddle automatically. Okay, and this tool here, this switch here, controls it. It actually, if you look at the little, I can't really, but there we go. See this? That symbol is sort of supposed to represent the thread of a screw, and you can either go that way or that way. This picture is going that way. So if I push the lever up here, it engages, it's a bit like an old gearbox without synchronisation. You just have to wiggle it until it bites. Now that handle is locked because it's locked into the lead screw that's controlling that. And if I now turn it on, you see that it's driving automatically. And that is just taking that head across there. So we get a very smooth finish on our material because that is just driving at a constant speed. There's no jolts or stops and starts. Okay. And the same thing if we turn it down. Now this handle is locked, okay? I'm going to drive it away from the work. But what you must be careful of if you ever use this is that you mustn't drive the saddle into the tailstock, or more importantly, if you're going that way, you mustn't drive it into the chuck. Okay, because what will happen is if this meets the chuck, it'll just catch on one of these jaws and stop, but it'll make a horrible noise, and it might even take a bit of metal off the chuck. But what it'll do is, I think it's called a Woodruff key. There's a key in the drive shaft of this lathe that holds the shaft together. So it's a thin slip of steel that is in two channels in the round shaft, and it's there as a safety to save the gears on the gearbox. If you jam it, that thin piece of steel will shear. Okay, and then we've got to strip it down, and I've never done it before on this machine, but it'll be quite involved. You can actually, I think you can get to see the gears, some of the gears on the back of this.
It's alright, you can use mine if you want.
Now you can see that's a nicely turned down bit of steel. It's got knurling on there, so it's grippy, threaded, and you can see the machining, can't you, where it's like the grooves on a record. Sorry, are you into LPs and records? Vinyl. There's some of the gears. There's the motor. Basic pulley set up, and then gears in the back. And there's a cut-out switch here, so that when this is taken off, the cut-out disconnects the electricity from the motor, so there's no chance, even though I've already pressed the button off, if someone turned it on and tried to run it with the cover off, that switch stops it from running. It's all part of health and safety to stop people losing fingers and gears. That big red bar on the floor there is also an emergency cut-off. If you're working on a lathe, the only thing that you've got free before this, apart from your two legs, is your. But that's no good for turning anything on and off. So you can use that. All right. So if we. Okay, it stops it almost dead. Right, puts a brake on, as well as turning the power off. It puts a brake on, so it is the quickest way to stop it, because you might have your tyre, if you hadn't put your apron on and you've got your tyre flapping around, it might have got onto that, and you'd be surprised how quickly your head would go to meet that chuck. It would go there in seconds, so you might actually just about get your foot on that bar and stop it in time. I think that's about it, really. Got a light. Switch. Can't think of anything else. There's a lot more to the machine. I mean, I'm only a very basic lathe user. All these tables of setting the machine up to cut threads. You know, you can cut a metric thread, an AF thread, a Whitworth thread. And you need this